Flanagan.
Thanks, Chairman. I too congratulate Mr. Ó Ríordáin on your reappointment and wish you well. And just a series of questions there in relation to the proposal for an aviation fuel pipeline, which is to connect Dublin Port in with Dublin Airport. Just wondering whether a planning application is ready there to be submitted, and what your views are on that particular proposal. Like what the benefits of the pipeline will be. Are there any safety concerns that the DAA might have in relation to that? Obviously, it will take a certain amount of trucks off the road, which the trucks, as we know already, do use the port tunnel anyway. So, just wondering, what is the situation on that? Now, I know there was an earlier proposal a number of years ago, and that was actually shelved. That didn't go ahead at all because the route was very controversial as to the residential areas that actual pipeline was going through. So just if I can get an up-to-date on that. Can I ask you regarding, I suppose, other members have asked about the current, I suppose, connectivity between the city centre and the airport. Are you happy with the current scenario? What's your opinion, I suppose, on the Swiftway proposals, on the proposals for a train link as well? And also, in recent times, there's a proposal by CIE for a rail link to Clongriffin Dart station, which would connect, obviously, the rail system with the rest of the country. So, for the likes of Cork and the likes of Galway as well, will be connected to the airport via that spur. So, can I ask you your opinion in relation to that? Regarding the plans for Dublin to become a transatlantic hub, is there documentation available on that, more information for deputies and senators to know as to what the plan and what the vision is for Dublin Airport in that regard? Senator O'Brien asked about the Greater Dublin Drainage Scheme and the plans to basically have a monster storage plant within 2 miles of Dublin Airport. I'd like to know what your opinions is on that. Is it appropriate? Is it acceptable? Because there's huge opposition to what's being proposed, basically with the location of this plant on the periphery of the Fingal County Council area, and it's basically servicing quite a number of counties, but just the location does not seem right. That perhaps a series of smaller plants would have been the better way to go rather than this monster plant. And regarding your interaction, the DAA's interaction with the local community and with interested stakeholders and public representatives on that, what forum exists there at present for people who do have any criticism or questions or want to communicate with the DAA on various points? How do they go about that? And finally, the whole issue of the pension scheme, IASS, and the deferred pensioners. Obviously, there's huge unfairness and unhappiness there among pensioners. They feel, the deferred ones particularly feel, that they're being singled out, that there's no equity in the cuts that are being applied when they're compared with other classes of pensioners, that the cuts should apply to all workers equally, that effectively the terms and conditions of their retirement and of their pension are being effectively broken, and that they're facing cuts of 50 to 60%. Now, we know in Northern Ireland and in the UK that you can't do anything with those. Those deferred pensioners are going to have to receive their benefits because of the UK pension law. So it's the Irish ones who are being penalised, and these workers have put huge time and effort, and as you described earlier, I mean, and service into all the airport companies. So I'm just looking for a fairer deal, really, for those pensioners.
Okay, could we just maybe a couple of minutes?
Absolutely. So let me go through those as quickly as I can. Senator Brennan, the 20% debt reduction, yes, we absolutely do want to bring it down further. And so, to the extent that we have any degree of profitability in the airports, or indeed generated by ARI, that we can bring down our debt, we do that. We have to refinance all of our debt over the next 2 years. So that's about 550 million of debt. The fact that our credit rating has improved, is tremendously strong in relation to that because the debt will cost us less. So we continue to be very, very focused on that. It's an interesting question you ask in relation to the other 6 airports in Europe that have, in the transatlantic leagues essentially, who have the same or more transatlantic traffic than we have. I would say from memory, but I think probably all of them do have a very, very strong connectivity from the city centre out to the airports. But I'm saying that just off from my knowledge of the airports. But it's a very interesting question. In terms of the passenger numbers having increased and profit hasn't, I mean, we obviously have a lot of capital expenditure, we have a lot of expense, we have the regulatory charges are actually quite low, so our ability to create profit in the airports is very, very inhibited. I mean, you see that we haven't increased cost, we've increased it only by 1% over the last 3 years, and yet we still find it very hard to find profit because things like, for example, the regulatory caps are actually genuinely quite restrictive. And then obviously there's other things like, for example, we'll talk about the pension in a second, the pension costs as well, which are, have to come out of the budget.
Mention those as well.
Yeah. So all of those things come in. But what I will tell you is that we are running the business on a very, very strongly business-oriented manner now, and have a proper strategic plan. And I would hope that the financial performance of the company will continue to improve. In relation to Cork, I couldn't agree more that the Cork Airport needs the active support of the entire region. The fact that there's only 37% of people who use Cork are actually inbound indicates that actually we're not attracting enough visitors in, and that's a general tourism initiative that actually needs to be put into Cork. Also, things like looking at whether there should be a public service obligation route from Cork to Dublin is very important, again, for transatlantic and for connectivity both into Cork and through Dublin on to other airports. I think it's very important. And also, frankly, in terms of support for airlines that come into to Cork, that they can actually advertise their services abroad. So there are a lot of things there that can be done, and we're working hard on doing. Good. Deputy Flanagan, so in relation to the aviation fuel pipeline, I'm not quite sure what the current status of that is at the moment, but what we can do is we can get you that material separately. I just don't have the brief here with me at the moment. In relation to the connectivity with the city centre, from the point of view of the airport and the point of view of what we can achieve in the airport over a period of time, and particularly if we have a second airport, again, we're talking medium to longer term, I think that degree of connectivity is very, very important. Of the options that we've reviewed to date, the Metro North is the one that actually that we would find preferable because it's a very long-term solution. It gives us the capacity, I think, into Dublin Airport for the conceivable future development of the airport. And again, I think in terms of an airport particularly, it's really important to think very long-term, not think about what's around the corner next year or the following year. And as I said earlier, I think generations of very, very good boards and management in DAA have done that actually for many years. So again, I think in terms of very long-term solution, Metro North is quite strong.
Sorry, the Swiftway and the Clongriffin one?
Oh, sorry. I think that perhaps we could have a separate conversation in relation to that, because I would need to go back and be briefed properly in relation to precisely what our position is on each of those. But I'd be very happy at some stage to do that if you'd like to do that. In relation to the plan for Dublin as a transatlantic hub, we'd be very happy actually to do a paper on that and circulate it so that everybody's aware of what the plan is. It's part of our strategic plan at the moment. In the Dublin drainage scheme, I've probably responded to that already. I think I'm not entirely sure why we haven't been an active participant in relation to that discussion. I think perhaps distance from the airport is one of the issues, but again, I'll check separately in relation to that. In respect of DAA interaction with the local community, we've got a lot of different manners that people can actually interrelate with us, and a lot of that is even on social media now. We've got a very good social media program, so we respond to issues very, very quickly. And I think you'll find that over the last 2 years we've become very, very outward looking again. Our relationships with all stakeholders, which would be obviously the state itself, the airlines, our employees and the community, I think has been very, very strong. And again, I would say there's a particular strength of Kevin Toland that he does a lot of workshops for people, and he goes out and actually speaks to people in town hall type settings quite a lot. So again, in terms of if there are individual issues from a community perspective, we absolutely will engage fully in respect of that. In terms of deferred pensioners, and I think this is a very important point, When deferred pensioners are talking about 50 to 60% cuts, they're talking about 50 to 60% cuts off the double pension. So in the example that I gave earlier, the €30,000 pension, they're talking about 50 to 60% cuts off the 42,000, not off the 30,000. So now, and that extra 12,000, the state pension, is something that they've never contributed to. So what they're saying is that because of the anomaly in the scheme, they believe that they would have an entitlement to the 42. And therefore they're judging their numbers from there. The actual numbers, if you look at what they've contributed to as pensioners or in the scheme, the 30, they will be getting a maximum of 10% cut off that 30, which is exactly the same as what the existing pensioners are getting under the restructuring that the trustees have put in. So they're not being treated very differently from other parties. And the other point maybe to remember in relation to nearly all of the deferred pensioners is that nearly all of them left Dublin Airport Authority on the basis of a voluntary severance scheme or an early retirement plan, which were, quite sizable packages. So, for example, in the last number of years, DAA has spent 50 million in relation to those passengers that they have paid either to pensioners or to deferred members of the scheme. So I think that when you stand back from this and look at this objectively, it's not as unfair as you think. And the expert panel has gone in, has listened to absolutely everybody on this, and has come out and said that the solution that we are signing up to is the fairest solution. They wouldn't have done that if the figures were as skewed as 50 to 60% reduction of pension.
Okay.